Okay, so in this lesson, we're basically just going to establish some terminology. So what you need is basically a blank sheet of paper where you can draw instances of what we're going to talk about today. And then you also need your definition sheet so that you can add these definitions to your definition sheet. And it'll be very clear to you when you need to add those definitions. So basically, this entire section, Chapter 1, Section 2, is all just introducing some basic terminology. We're just introducing some of the language that we're going to be using all year so that we can be referring to, we can be having the same conversation. So a straight path drawn from one point to another is called a segment. So let's say I have 2 points. Let's call this point A, and over here we have point B. Then the straight path between them, and I'm going to try and draw this as straight as I can, but obviously it's not perfect. That straight path between those 2 points, that is called a segment. Okay, so that is a segment, a straight path between 2 points, and the points that are on the end of a segment are called endpoints. Okay, so these are endpoints, and those are that come at the end of a segment. So that's what a segment looks like. It's just a straight path, and you can write the definition on your definition sheet. I'm going to type it out here, that a segment is a straight path drawn from one point to another. And I'll give you a second to write that down on your definition sheet while you do that. So a straight path drawn from one point to another. Those are called endpoints. There's a point on the segment that I don't have to draw that is in the direct middle, and that is called the midpoint, right? So I want you to look at this. Now, let's say I pick this point right here that looks like it's about the middle. That would be called the midpoint. So that right there is the midpoint, the point that's directly between A and B. That's directly between 2 points. That's the midpoint. And the midpoint is there whether I draw it or not, right? This point on this line, on this path, is there. I'm just choosing to highlight it, right? So the midpoint is the point directly between A and B. Segments are sometimes denoted with a bar. So we would refer to this segment as the segment A, B, and we would write A, B next to each other with a little bar over the top. But we also, a lot of times it's just easier for us to write AB. So I can refer to this line segment as either of these things, and both of these we will use. Both of these things right here, both this and this, mean line segment AB, or segment AB. Okay? So that's a segment. Let's introduce another. Let's say I have these points C and D. But this time, it doesn't stop at the endpoints through one side. It extends on, and we draw an arrow. That is called an array. So when we continue our straight path through the endpoint, like right here at D, the endpoint from where this path starts is called the origin. So this would be the origin. And when it goes on forever, but only in one direction, so this path goes on forever, but only in this direction, then we call that a ray. A ray. Okay, so this is a ray. It's a segment where it extends in one direction, and the technical definition of a ray is a segment that continues in one direction. So this is a segment that continues only in one direction. And how we denote a segment is with a symbol CD, and we draw a little arrow over it like that. Okay, so that is how we denote an array. If we continue the path in both directions, so I'm going to scroll down here. So let's say we have this. Actually, I'll undo that really quickly. Say I have 2 points here. If I continue the path and that goes in both directions, then that is called a line. Okay, and that continues in both directions. So let's say this was point E and this was point F. Then we would denote this line as line EF. And we would put this little symbol over the top. That means line EF. That's how we would refer to this line. So a line is just defined as I'll write it out, line. And you could put this on your definition sheet. A path that continues on in 2 directions. Okay. Sometimes you'll see them referred to lines as opposite rays. Okay. And what that means is, if you think about it, F to E like this, from here through here, could be referred to as a ray, and E to F is also a ray, right? If I were just to take this part of EF from here over, that's a ray. And here, FE, that is also a ray. So sometimes the lines are referred to as opposite rays because they're 2 rays that go off in 2 opposite directions. And we always refer from the point that a ray starts from first. So like for this example, this is CD. For me to say ray DC, that wouldn't work because C is the origin and it only goes in this direction. Okay. Let's see how many more we have. I have a list here. Plane, collinear points, coplanar points. Okay. Opposite rays we've got. Segment we've got. Intersect. We'll do collinear points and coplanar points. Actually, we'll just do collinear points. So I'm going to come back here, and this definition you can just put on your sheet. So collinear points are 3 or more points on the same line. 3 or more points on the same line. That is collinear points. Okay? So what we just went over is some language through which you can talk about these different geometrical concepts. We have segment, midpoint, endpoints. A segment has 2 clear endpoints. We have rays, CD. We have lines that go off in both directions, and we have collinear points. So hopefully you have some good pictures and a good idea of what these things mean. You have added some definitions to your definition sheet, and then we will continue on our study of vocabulary in class next week.